There is a unique kind of fear that doesn't rely on monsters, ghosts, or shadows lurking in the dark. It's quieter, still, patient. It sits on bookshelves, on pillows, or in the corners of childhood bedrooms, smiling. Stuffed toys, with their stitched-on grins and lifeless button eyes, were meant to comfort us. Yet across cultures, documentaries, horror films, and whispered stories, they have gradually transformed into one of humanity's most quietly disturbing symbols. We trust them because they look innocent, but that same innocence is what makes their betrayal terrifying. When something that should never move suddenly changes position, even slightly, the imagination spirals into places no science can soothe. Human beings are wired for anthropomorphism, the urge to assign emotions, motives, and intentions to things that have none. This instinct makes toys feel like friends in childhood and like potential threats in adulthood. Throughout history, we've told stories of objects waking up when we turn our backs. From ventriloquist dummies to Pinocchio, from Robert the Doll to Annabelle, the legend repeats. We are being watched by the things we think we own. So today, we're counting down 10 escalating cases, scenarios of stuffed toys that allegedly moved when no one was watching, rising from mildly unsettling to nightmare fuel. We begin with the least threatening but most psychologically loaded scenario, the toy that seems to follow its owner. Imagine a child who brings a stuffed animal everywhere, on car rides, to school, on the bus. One morning, the toy is forgotten at home, left on the bed. Yet by afternoon, there it is again, resting in the child's backpack. The parent assumes the child packed it without remembering. The child swears they didn't. Nothing about this moment is violent or monstrous. In fact, it almost feels loyal, like the stuffed friend simply didn't want to be left behind. This is the classic companion trope, the same warm but uneasy idea that made Toy Story beloved, yet unsettling when imagined in real life. Psychologically, this taps into parasocial attachment, a one-sided emotional bond with an object. For a toy that returns, the movement feels like devotion, but devotion without rules quickly becomes obsession. And obsession without consent? That's where the unease begins. This is the moment when subtlety starts to feel predatory. Someone goes to sleep, placing a stuffed toy beside a lamp, or on a dresser, or neatly at the foot of the bed. In the morning, it is shifted. Now it's on the other side of the pillow, or turned to face the sleeping owner. The movement is small, easily dismissed. Maybe I kicked it in my sleep. Maybe someone else moved it. But denial fades after repetition. This scenario exploded on social media with time-lapse experiments. People set up cameras expecting to catch cats or siblings, and instead discovered frames where toys seemed to change orientation, inching closer, leaning forward, or turning their heads ever so slightly. A tiny shift the owner doesn't remember making becomes the first crack in rationality. That's the danger of the pillow pouncer, not its actions, but its audacity. It's close, closer than it should be. The next stage isn't about proximity, it's about intent. A toy that changes position is scary. A toy that changes pose is worse. Now imagine walking into a quiet room and realizing your stuffed bear, which once sat with arms at its sides, is now posed with a book open in its lap, or angled to stare directly at an object in the room, or at you. This is where pareidolia takes over, the brain searching for meaning and randomness. A tilted head feels like a gaze. A bent arm feels like a gesture. "I didn't leave it like that" becomes a haunting refrain. And unlike the pillow pouncer, whose movement could be blamed on gravity or rolling, the library lurker implies fine motor control, choice, curiosity, awareness. It isn't getting closer, it's watching and learning. Now the movement becomes bold. The toy that once stayed in plain sight is suddenly found under the bed, in a toy chest, or behind a closet door that no one remembers opening. It's moving into hiding places. It isn't trying to be noticed, it's trying to disappear. This trope appears constantly in horror cinema because hidden spaces trigger primal fear. Closets and dark corners represent the unknown. When a toy relocates to those spaces, it implies one of two deeply unsettling motives: escape or privacy. Either it wants to leave where you put it, or it doesn't want to be seen when it moves. Both possibilities are chilling. The toy is no longer an object in your space. You have become an intruder in it. Movement is no longer passive or positional. At this stage, witnesses report toys rocking, bowing, twitching, or dancing when no wind, vibration, or mechanism could explain it. There is a long history of humans being disturbed by automaton-like motion, jerky, puppet-like gestures that mimic life, but without rhythm or soul. The dancing teddy crosses from eerie to unnatural, because now the toy isn't just relocating, it's performing. A child might laugh, an adult will freeze. We are wired to fear motion without motive. A shake or twirl, even slight, suggests animation without life. A parody of movement that belongs to something in between. Something not alive but not inert. This is the first scenario with distance. The toy is discovered far from where it was left. Not inches, not feet, but floors away. A doll left in a bedroom turns up in the attic. A teddy left on a playroom chair ends up in a dusty basement storage bin. Attics in particular trigger layered psychological dread. They are graveyards of forgotten objects, places associated with memory, abandonment, and secrets. Historically, many haunted object legends begin with attics. Museums display allegedly haunted dolls found in trunks or rafters, claiming spirits attached themselves to childhood relics. When a stuffed toy moves to such a place on its own, it suggests trajectory, a path, and paths suggest goals. Something that follows a path is no longer an object. I am a traveler.
The escalation becomes physical. Not only is the toy moving, but it's leaving behind evidence. Dirty footprints, scuff marks, scratched floors, soil on its fabric, or small objects clutched in its hand. Objects it could not have reached alone. Once residue appears, coincidence dies. This is the stage where witnesses stop doubting themselves, because the toy is engaging with the world. It has weight. It has a presence. It can affect its surroundings. In haunted object lore, this is the point where stories take a darker turn, when the object demonstrates agency. The toy isn't watching anymore, it's acting. If there is one behavior that universally disturbs people, it is imitation. When a toy is found sitting in front of a television, angled as if watching a screen, the implication is intelligence, and worse, intent to learn. We recognize this pose because it mirrors human behavior. Stuffed toys are supposed to reflect our imagination, not our habits. When they start mimicking us, the hierarchy reverses. The owner is no longer projecting personality onto the toy. The toy appears to be absorbing personality from the owner. That possibility, that a toy might be evolving, is profoundly unsettling. This is the moment where the stuffed toy stops being a solitary threat and starts becoming a manipulator. Toys are found moving other toys, swapping clothes, repositioning dolls into disturbing poses, arranging scenes the owner never staged. It implies not only movement, but creative action. Toys are no longer passive wanderers, they are curators, or tormentors. To an observer, this moment shatters the last psychological barrier.
Toys are interacting with the environment deliberately, not for escape, not for curiosity, but for expression. And expression requires a mind. The final, most terrifying stage is not a single toy, but a group, the collective tableau. Multiple toys moving in unison, rearranging themselves into patterns, or shifting together over multiple nights. No phenomenon terrifies the human mind more than coordination among things that should be chaos. One doll moving is a coincidence. Several dolls working as one is the intention. Real-world cases, from Robert the doll to Annabelle, became infamous precisely because the dolls weren't isolated. They influenced rooms, people, objects, and other toys. A collection implies hierarchy, leadership, community, and a community of silent, watchful faces, waiting until no one is looking. That is the heart of the nightmare. From the loyal bus ride buddy to the nightmarish haunted doll collective, these stories follow the same emotional spiral: movement, awareness, intention, and finally organization. The terror works because it preys on a primal belief lodged deep in childhood, that our toys are alive, and that they only drop the act when we leave the room. And the scariest part? We will never be able to watch them all at once.